absolutely one of the funniest stories that I've probably ever seen, at least as long as our channel has been around, as long as I've been a professional commentator. This has to be one of my favorite stories ever to happen. This is absolutely hysterical. So let's check it out. So Cenk was calling out Joe Rogan over some of his admittedly fairly cringy takes when it comes to COVID. In my opinion, I don't necessarily disagree with Cenk's beef with Joe when it comes to their substantive disagreements over the handling of COVID pandemic vaccine related topics. Generally I do think that Joe has had some pretty cringe material in that regard, and I definitely don't sign off on everything he's said. I think he's definitely veered into the conspiratorial territory more so than even I usually do, and I'm not someone that's typically all that adverse to conspiratorial thinking. So that is what it is. But Cenk here says, to all the loser Joe Rogan fans crying over my attack on his freedom, hypocrisy, and stupidity, are you guys part of the crew, or do you kiss his ass for fun? I thought he was a big boy who could handle himself. If he doesn't like my free speech, he can grow a pair and defend himself. So, whatever. This is a pretty innocuous kind of tweet trying to start some beef, definitely trying to get some attention, as Cenk Uygur loves to do more than anything. Pretty much half of all the things that Cenk Uygur says, especially on Twitter, is just to get attention, in the hopes to trend and piss people off and start a conversation. So, take that for what it is. But I thought this was definitely funny, definitely interesting. But it escalated, guys. It definitely escalated here. Just some random person, seemingly, I don't follow this person. They reply and say, I'll make a $1,000 donation to your trash network or your charity of choice to see you call Rogan, who is not only the most successful podcast in history, but also a black belt in mixed martial arts, a loser to his face. So this guy's basically saying, put your fucking money where your mouth is. Why don't you say this to his face? And the funny part about this is that Cenk would probably love to say this to Joe's face, because he's been clamoring to get back on Joe's podcast ever since the one time he did appear on the Joe Rogan Experience back a long time ago, like fucking 10 years ago, seemingly. Ever since then, he's been whining about how he never got invited back, and even saying super cringy things like, oh, Joe Rogan won't have me on because he's too afraid to confront my ideas. He knows I'm correct. He won't have me on because he's just too afraid to debate me. He knows he would lose. So, pretty cringy, almost Dave Rubin style, salt over the fact that he's not been re-invited back on the Joe Rogan Experience. And, clearly Joe doesn't really find him all that worth talking to, which would explain why he's never been invited back. So, this is all kind of precipice by the fact that Cenk is salty about having never been on the Joe Rogan Experience beyond that initial appearance. So that's definitely funny too, but it keeps going. Cenk responds, deal. Easiest $1,000 I ever made. You think he's going to assault me? Sure, whatever. That's incredibly dumb, but also wouldn't work. I'm much larger than Joe. I guess that's not correct. And I fought my whole life. Who the fuck have you fought? Anyway, I'd end him, but grown-ups don't do that. I'll send you the P.O. box to send check to later. So I'll pass this off to you, Zach, because I know you're our resident MMA UFC head. What was your response to this potential matchup?
So I have to point out the obvious right here. You can't be a black belt in mixed martial arts. So I will just point that out. But Joe Rogan is a literal black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I believe he's also a black belt in Taekwondo, which it means that, one, there is absolutely 0% chance that Cenk Uygur could ever last more than 10 seconds squaring off with Joe Rogan. I agree a lot more with Cenk Uygur politically, probably, than Joe Rogan, but just from a complete, rooted in reality, like, we're not talking about politics. If they're having a street fight, obviously Joe Rogan is going to whip his fucking out. It was just embarrassing for him to even go there. Why would you engage with that guy? That's the real thing. 100%. Joe Rogan would not actually fight Cenk Uygur. He that would cost him like a fucking $10 million in lawsuits, a fortune in lawsuits if he ever tried to do that. Because Cenk Uygur would definitely try and sue the shit out of the guy because he would get fucking mutilated in a bad, worse worst kind of a way. So it's obviously off the table. Cenk's 100% correct about that. But what's so goddamn embarrassing is that he has to engage with people like this on the internet. Like, you and I wouldn't engage with somebody like this on the internet, and we're fucking nobodies. We walk down the street, nobody gives a fuck who we are. Nobody says, "Oh, you're the guys from the..." Never. Okay, Cenk Uygur, I guarantee you, like, he's obviously hugely successful. Like, you know, he has like, people know who he is. Like, why would you fucking use your platform at this level to try and like talk to some random person about how you would fight Joe Rogan, who's another person that used to be your peer, but you fucked up so badly in your career that you've just eaten his fucking dust for the last decade, you know? So I don't know. It's ridiculous. Like, this would be like if our careers went really well and, you know, we're still relevant down the line. And then some random guy that hosts like fucking podcast becomes our number one nemesis because, like, why? Because we're jealous of the fact that our political show isn't doing as good as his. That's what it comes down to, guys. The only reason he's talking about this shit right now is because he's so butthurt that Joe Rogan and Alex Jones even could crush the fuck out of the Young Turks. And then Alex Jones gets invited back on Joe Rogan's podcast because for some reason Joe thinks the guy's interesting to listen to. I get a lot of people think he's funny or whatever, but you know, it's just embarrassing. It's just such a bad look. It's really pathetic. I can't imagine being a fucking 55-year-old man, however the fuck old Cenk is, and spending this, you know, doing this, trying to assert your manhood, your masculinity against somebody that would obviously whip your fucking ass. Like, you know what I mean? Why would you do that? Like, I'm trying to think, like, why don't I just start tweeting about how, like, oh yeah, Jake Paul's so scared of me. I will fuck Jake Paul up so bad. He doesn't want the smoke from the Vanguard. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's so fucked up. Like, why would I? One, obviously he's never going to engage with me because who the fuck am I compared to that guy's platform? That's kind of the, like, it's that level of embarrassment from Cenk.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's a great analogy. Maybe we should start trying to beef with Jake Paul. You know what I'm saying? Come on, bro. This is absolutely hilarious. The mainstream media is surprisingly taking this. Yeah, the mainstream media is actually taking this like more seriously than they probably should be. There's this whole Newsweek article, you know, explaining the context behind this, but then it literally gets into like their stats. How tall are Cenk Uygur and Joe Rogan? According to IMDb, 51-year-old Uygur is 5 feet 8 inches tall, 8.5 inches tall, while 54-year-old Rogan is an inch shorter at 5'7.5". Yeah, Joe Rogan is pretty fucking short. Have you seen those photos of him like next to really tall dudes where he just looks like a fucking dwarf? But yeah, while Rogan may be shorter, he does not fall short in martial arts experience. According to his website, his passion for martial arts began at the age of 13, and he earned a black belt within 2 years. Damn, is pretty impressive. By the age of 19, Rogan won the U.S. Open Taekwondo Championship as a lightweight champion before also beating the middle and heavyweight title holders, blah, 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 to obtain the grand champion. Newsweek has contacted Uygur and Rogan for comment. I'm sure they'll hear back. But yeah, I just thought it was funny because this has definitely actually created a lot of discussion and you know, debate or whatever you want to call it online. But I did think it was hilarious how the mainstream media was actually, you know, getting in on it and like Newsweek literally, you know, posting their stats as if this was a serious hypothetical matchup that could happen. I'm pretty sure it won't, but definitely pretty amusing stuff. And I also wanted to quickly shout this out too, if I can find it, because there was a pretty interesting reply to this original thread that's gone semi-viral itself. I think it might have even racked up more likes than Cenk's tweet itself. But yeah, Primo Radical, who's another good independent left YouTube channel, does some really great interviews with various figures on the left. Primo responds and says, and yeah, it looks like he ratioed Cenk, which is legendary, over 1,000 likes more. He says, I'll make a $5,000 donation if you sit down with me for an hour-long interview about how Jeffrey Katzenberg's money has influenced TYT's reporting/analysis, namely on foreign policy, but also issues like the criminalization of the homeless in Los Angeles, which is a very good point. And it is undeniable that TYT's reporting and analysis has pivoted quite a bit since their glory days. And that's coming from someone that has been watching TYT since their glory days. Not that I really watch it much anymore on a day-to-day basis for anything other than this show. But that being said, I have watched their quality in reporting decline massively, and their commentary just decline massively. And of course, that was preceded by this massive donation from the Katzenberg money, this investment essentially. So yeah, I thought it was funny that Cenk is trying to fight Joe Rogan, but meanwhile, in his replies, people are still more concerned about the actual substance of TYT's reporting, and they're not so easily distracted by Cenk's chest thumping distractions.
Yeah, I mean, it's so, like I said, I keep going back to the word just utterly embarrassing, because I can't believe that it's real. I can't believe that Cenk, and also, I mean, I can't believe that Cenk would just engage with this random ass person instead of Primo, who's out here offering him $5,000 for his fucking, for Cenk's worthless commentary to come on his show. Primo knows he's not going to learn anything when he sits down with Cenk. What he wants to do is expose the fucker, and if Cenk had any fucking sincerity, any balls or whatever, that's the fucking tweet that he would have replied to. He said, name the time and place, fucker. I'll answer any of your questions, right? Like, that's the tweet he should have responded to if he was serious, right? But he's not serious. He's a fucking joke, man.